A circus had come to the little town, and all the children were begging their mothers and fathers for permission to go. Of course, Thomas and Annika asked to go too, and their kind father immediately gave them some money. Clutching it tightly in their hands, they rushed over to Pippi's. She was on the porch with her horse, braiding his tail into tiny pigtails and tying each one with red ribbon. Good evening, my little angels. Have you ever been to the circus? The memories you create at the circus will surely become wonderful experiences for you to recount later. In today's story time, the lively and curious little Pippi, who always sees the world in her own unique and memorable way, gets to visit the circus. Or perhaps we could say that the circus is welcoming a special guest like Pippi for the first time. Let's find out what surprising events will unfold for Pippi and the circus. Pippi goes to the circus, Part 1. Pippi was on the porch with her horse, braiding his tail into tiny pigtails and tying each one with red ribbon. I think it's his birthday today, she announced, so he has to be all dressed up. Pippi, said Thomas, all out of breath because they had been running so fast. Pippi, do you want to go with us to the circus? I can go with you for most anywhere, answered Pippi. But whether I can go to the circus or not, I don't know, because I don't know what a circus is. Does it hurt? Silly, said Thomas. Of course it doesn't hurt. It's fun. Horses and clowns and pretty ladies that walk the tightrope. But it costs money, said Annika, opening her small fist to see if the shiny $50 and the quarters were still there. I'm rich as a troll, said Pippi, so I guess I can buy a circus, alright. But it'll be crowded here if I have more horses. The clowns and the pretty ladies I could keep in a laundry. But it's harder to know what to do with the horses. Oh, don't be so silly, said Thomas. You don't buy a circus. It costs money to go and look at it, see? Preserve us, cried Pippi and shut her eyes tightly. It costs money to look, and here I go around goggling all day long. Goodness knows how much money I've goggled up already. Then, little by little, she opened one eye very carefully, and it rolled round and round in her head. Cost what it may, she said, I must take a look. At last, Thomas and Annika managed to explain to Pippi what a circus really was, and she took some gold pieces out of her suitcase. Then she put on her hat, which was as big as a millstone, and off they all went. There were crowds of people outside the circus tent and a long line at ticket window, but at last it was Pippi's turn. She stuck her head through the window and stared at the dear old lady sitting there. How much does it cost to look at you? Pippi asked, but the old lady was a foreigner who did not understand what Pippi meant and answered in broken Swedish. Little girl, it costs $1.25 in the grandstand and 75 cents on the benches and 25 cents for standing room. Now Thomas interrupted and said that Pippi wanted a 75-cent ticket. Pippi put down a gold piece and the old lady looked suspiciously at it. She bit it too to see if it was genuine. At last she was convinced that it really was gold and gave Pippi her ticket and a great deal of change in silver. What could I do with all those nasty little white corns? Asked Pippi disgustedly. Give them, and then I can look at you twice in the standing room. As Pippi absolutely refused to accept any change, the lady changed her ticket to one for the grandstand and gave Thomas and Annika grandstand tickets too, without their having to pay any single penny. In that way, Pippi, Thomas, and Annika came to sit on some beautiful red chairs right next to the ring. Thomas and Annika turned around several times to wave to their schoolmates who were sitting much farther away. "This is a remarkable place," said Pippi, looking around in astonishment. "But see, they spill sawdust all over the floor. Not that I'm over fussy myself, but that does look careless to me." Thomas explained that all circuses had sawdust on the floor for the horses to run around in. On the platform nearby, the circus band suddenly began to play a thundering march. Pippi clapped her hands wildly and jumped up and down with delight. "Does it cost money to hear too?" she asked. "Or can you do that for nothing?" At that moment, the curtain in front of the performer's entrance was drawn aside, and the ringmaster in a black frock coat with a whip in his hand came running in, followed by 10 white horses with red plumes on their heads. The ringmaster cracked his whip, and all the horses galloped around the ring. Then he cracked it again, and all the horses stood still with their front feet upon the railing around the ring. One of them had stopped directly in front of the children. Annika didn't like to have a horse so near her and drew back in her chair as far as she could. But Pippi leaned forward and took the horse's right foot in her hands. "Hello there," she said. "My horse sent you his best wishes. It's his birthday today too, but he has bounced on his tail instead of his head." Luckily, she dropped the foot before the ringmaster cracked his whip again, because then all horses jumped away from the railing and began to run around the ring. When the act was over, the ringmaster bowed politely and the horses ran out. In an instant, the curtain opened again for a coal-black horse. On its back stood a beautiful lady dressed in green silk tights. The program said her name was Miss Carmencita. The horse trotted around the sawdust, and Miss Carmencita stood calmly in his back and smiled. But then something happened. Just as the horse passed Pippi's seat, something came squishing through the air, and it was none other than Pippi herself. And there she stood on the horse's back, behind Miss Carmencita. At first, Miss Carmencita was so astonished that she nearly fell off the horse. Then she got mad. She began to strike out with her hands behind her back to make Pippi jump off. But that didn't work. "Take it easy," said Pippi. "Do you think you're the only one who can have any fun? Other people have paid too, haven't they?" Then Miss Carmencita tried to jump off herself, but that didn't work either, because Pippi was holding her tightly around her waist. And that the audience couldn't help laughing. They thought it was funny to see the lovely Miss Carmencita held against her will by a little red-headed youngster in her enormous shoes, and looked as if she had never done anything except perform in a circus. A chaotic scene that brings anxiety to the organizers, but delivers endless laughter and joy to the audience. How will everything unfold next? Let's wait and see in the upcoming part. And that's the end of today's story time. I wish my little angels a good night's sleep. I kiss you long on your forehead. See you again next time.
In the jolly summertime, through field and